Greetings to everyone. This is our Spiritist Psychology Study Group, and I would like to hand it over to Anahy. Over to you, Anahy.
Okay, thank you, Fabricio. Hi, everyone. So I'll just, I prepared a PowerPoint, okay, and we can go little by little through the material. It's a lot of teachings by Joanna, and I think it would be nice if maybe people are kind of, well, I didn't understand that. Can you explain better? Then just raise your hands, and then Fabricio, you guys, I could stop and answer the question, okay? And we can have some time to discuss later on. So I'll just share my screen with you guys. I'm disabled, Fabricio.
Okay, I have just enabled you now.
Can I try again?
Yep.
All right. So I think it takes a while.
And it looks like it's loading it.
Because it's not opening full screen, right?
It's just showing to us like a black screen at the moment and say that you have start sharing the screen. All we can see is like a black screen.
There's something happening here. Just a second. I think probably it's my internet, Fabricio.
You want to
I
close and
think
open
I
again?
will leave for a while. You guys
Mhm.
talk a little. Oh, well, something happened.
Oh, there we go. Yes, we can see now.
You can see?
Yes.
I think it was a internet fluctuation or something like that. I'll just put in the beginning.
Okay.
There's something going on here.
We can see the slide. Joanna Jones. Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yes.
is that,
Yes.
how is it now? Okay, I
Yes.
think it was a fluctuation of the internet. Okay, so we are going to be talking today, sorry, about the relational instinct. So based on the teachings of Joannei de Angelis by Divaldo Pereira Franco. I thought it was interesting to put, because sometimes people get a little confused if we are talking about an author like Professor Lionel Corbett that has been with us some meetings, or but just to make sure all this our meetings discourse are based in the teachings of Joannei de Angelis, the spiritual author, psychographed by Divaldo Pereira Franco, okay? Right. So we are going to use in the beginning here, The Awakening of the Spirit, her book from the year 2000. I always think it's very interesting. I think I told you that I have been listening to a lot of podcasts. I'm researching the anomalous experiences um, in and in a general population, to see this shift in consciousness and the way that the collective unconscious is expressing itself these days of the transition. We say that we are going through a transition towards a regenerated world, as we say in Spiritist knowledge. So I have been listening to a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels talking about this in English. So people from Europe and United States, and a lot of people are talking about an awakening of the spirit. as something that it's, you know, you can see that all of this has been going on, at least since we have YouTube channels or things like that. I think it's not, if I'm mistaken, then maybe Fabricio or one of you can tell me. But I think YouTube channels, podcasts is like from 10 years at most, okay, in the past. I don't think it's even 10 years, right? I think it's only in the last years. Of course, there are a lot of people talking about awakening of the spirit, and have been talking, because this is an information coming from spiritual realms, higher evolution spirits. So of course, all around the globe, people are going to have the same or similar information that they will translate in their own cultures, okay? And through their possibilities of maturity and culture and perceptions. But I think it's also always very important that we give credit, let's say, to whom is talking to us, which spirit, which hierarchy, in, you know, spiritual evolution. So we are going to be talking today things that I have only started listening in these words, because of course there are books and people talking from, as I told you, from many, many years. But in this language, in this way of speaking, and from the psychological point of view, the main author that I have seen in this, you know, in this whole more than almost 20 books and more than 20 books from this broad psychological view that considers the spirit, for me, is Joannei de Angelis. And when she talks about the awakening of the spirit, that a lot of people are talking nowadays, but quite recently in years, she's talking, this book is from the year 2000. So I think it's very important for us to pay attention. I think it's very precious, and I think it has stayed in Brazil because of maybe some logistics from the spiritual world, maybe to force us to translate and to talk to each other about this. But we will know the reason in the future. But the thing is that we should pay attention no matter which country, which culture, and, you know, because spirituality is universal. The truth is universal. It's only our differences when we reincarnate and we have certain characteristics of personality, of culture, of time and space, where we reincarnate, that we kind of think, oh, this truth is mine, this truth is mine, and my truth is different from yours. So I think it's very, very important, because Joannei and a lot of other spiritual authors are talking about a cosmic evolution, a shift of consciousness, that it's going to connect us with the cosmic forces. We need cosmic consciousness. A lot of spirits, wonderful spirits, are bringing this information. So it doesn't matter where we are in the world, which gender, age, or whatever, or culture, or even religion, or way of feeling the world. It doesn't matter, because if we are talking about a shift of consciousness, of an awakening of the spirit, and we are all brothers and sisters, we are all spirits reincarnated in this moment, precious moment of evolution of mankind, humankind. So it doesn't matter, the truth is going to be one, perceived by each one of us in a different way. As we always say, the elephant in the room, and we are blindfolded, and each one of us is touching one part of the elephant. So each one of us are going to describe the same thing, but from our own perspective, right? And we need all to put together in this shift, because the shift is, shift in consciousness is from humankind, human beings. So we need to put together all of our knowledges, all of our perceptions. Okay, so I just want to make this clear that Joannei de Angelis sends this book through Divaldo Pereira Franco, The Awakening of the Spirit. Actually, many of the books were written previously, even in her psychological works. But this is has been sent in the year 2000. So in chapter 7 that we are going to be talking today, she talks about human relationships. Remember, we are talking about, let's say here, the relational instinct, okay? And this is a spiritual author talking about the relational instinct. So why is she talking about that to us? Why is that important? So Joannei says, everything comes from unity, capital U, of course, from unity, and returns to unity. The universe is one in its constitution, the result of the divine psychism, which involves and dynamizes everything. So we could talk hours about only this sentence. And I have, it's a synchronicity. I have heard a lot of people talking about that. We have now quantum physics, and it's kind of common knowledge. Even if many of us don't understand exactly the physics involved, we understand the metaphysics, we understand the philosophy that is behind all the principles of quantum physics, and especially people that are spiritualists or that have some knowledge of the spiritist knowledge, let's say, that Allan Kardec, Chico Xavier, Divaldo, and other wonderful mediums and spiritualists, and spirits, authors have sent to us, have been psychographing and all of that, so we can understand with this knowledge, even quantum physics, people. Because when you go to a YouTube channel or a podcast, you see, I will never understand that. I have some people coming to me and say, oh, this is so complicated. I don't understand. What is quantum physics? People are talking about a field. I don't know if you have listened to that. A field that we are immersed in, this field that we communicate with this field. Spiritist knowledge has talked about this since the 19th century with Allan Kardec. So it's everything so new, the field that we understand, that we are exchanging and we are co-creating our reality. People are talking about the simulation as if like, a video game, that we are all in a simulation. Of course, we are in a simulation created by ourselves, with our mentors and spiritual guides, because we come here to learn, to evolve. So nothing that people are talking on these days are that look at, wow, it's so new. And we have some podcasts have and YouTube channels have millions of people I've seen watching, as if everything is so new. And I kept wondering these days, well, we have a lot of knowledge about that since the 19th century. It's just that it's a different language. Of course, there has been an expansion of knowledge in science and even in philosophy and and psychology, but to this day, the materialistic science, even to these days, have a lot of resistance to open up. And we need more scientists with open minds. It's incredible. because science is supposed, a scientist, a good scientist is supposed to have an open mind, to deal with hypotheses and to try to look for them, to explore them, and try to prove, but in a sense of expansion of observation of nature and its laws. And remember, I keep telling you guys that Jung said that the psyche is part of nature, okay? And it's a psyche and matter are two different dimensions of the same unity. Jung talks about that, of the same reality, ultimate reality. So of course we should explore, and we should try to prove our theories, but with always open minds and changing as our consciousness expand and changes, and also changing with the information that comes to us. We cannot do like the monkeys. I keep telling everyone that I don't want to see, I don't want to hear, and I'm not talking about that, because then we are like children. Okay, and if I see something and it happens, and I try to understand that, well, but people say, well, you are the only person that it's seeing that. I'm not seeing that. I don't understand in the same way. It's okay, because as I told you in the beginning, we need each other. We need to listen to each other. We don't have to agree with other people say, but we have, of course, to listen with respect and try to consider that. Okay, why? Let's go back to human relationships, because Joanne is going to explain to us why this is so, so important. Because everything, including us, comes from unity, the creative force of the universe, okay, that we can call God. I love that Lionel Corbett, our friend here, Professor Lionel Corbett, says the head office. I think it's kind of cute. So everything comes from unity and returns to unity. The universe is one in its constitution, and we are part of the universe. So we are one, our constitution, and the different levels, the different bodies that constitutes us. The subtle body, the mental body, the emotional body, the physical body. So we are one with the universe, okay? And the result of the divine psychism, which involves and dynamizes everything. This is the field that everybody's talking about, okay? I think it's wonder how different perspectives and different cultures can arrive in the same principle. So Joanna says, the most complex constructions are the result of the relationship of particles whose molecules identify themselves, now pay attention, in the same vibration of cosmic force. I underlined it, some of this, her sentence, because I think this is so important for us to read, reread, think, rethink again, okay? Because it's opening up from the micro to the microcosm to the microcosm, from connecting everything. People are also talking about of interconnectedness of everything. Okay, and Joanna was talking about that in the year 2000, and Allan Kardec talked about that in the 19th century. Okay, so it's nothing new, people. Sorry about that, but it's nothing new. So let's go again. The most complex constructions are the result of the relationship of particles whose molecules identify themselves in the same vibration of cosmic force. It's a matter of vibrating, of the vibration. okay? And everything comes and it's organized by this cosmic force, okay? So we vibrate differently and we connect in the microcosm, like even in quantum physics, they say that. Then they talk about information, fields of information. But here, Joanna is bringing us, of course, the particles. Okay, she doesn't want to go that deep, so doesn't make our heads a little fuzzy or dizzy. But she's talking about particles whose molecules identify themselves. Look at of the relationship among particles, molecules, right? Vibrating the same cosmic force, always made up of microforms that are diluted in the primitive energy that constitutes the basic unit. So everything comes from this basic unit that we can call, of course, as she said here, the divine psychism, for instance, okay? The one, the unity. And everything goes back to this unit, okay? So she says that all minerals are related, whose strength of agglutination of atoms results in the infinite variety of forms through which they present themselves, possessing a special and cyclopic vibration, ancient, big and ancient vibration. In the same way, plants interact intensely, exchanging specific vibrations and pollens that fertilize and vitalize them, during which time they develop spontaneous sensitivity that captures the energies that promote life. Look, in a very kind of small sentence, she covers minerals, the relationship previously with atoms, right? Particles, molecules, then minerals, then plants, and all this relationship that it's also needs vibration, okay? Similar vibrations. So she says the same phenomenon occurs with animals, now more intensely due to the instincts that propel them to vital impulses, without which they would become extinct, needing each other and at the same time preserving the ecosystem with other living beings. So interconnected of everything. Then human beings can in no way live without the relationships that constitute basic factors for facing challenges and developing the values that lie within them in an embryonic form. So you see the interconnectedness and the forces and the vibrations can differ in the different dimensions of life, in the different complexities of life, okay? And since we think of ourselves higher in the pyramid of, of a certain hierarchy in the world, so Joanna is saying that we can in no way live without the relationships, okay, that constitute basic factors for facing challenges and developing the values that lie within them in an embryonic form. When people do not maintain healthy relationships, so let's think of nowadays what's going on in the world. They find themselves in a behavioral disorder that may have pathological characteristics and become worse. Even so, apart from natural exceptions, there are unconscious processes of identification with others on the same emotional level structuring any type of relationship, although aggressive, cruel, or dependent in nature. So you see, when we are in a pathological relationship, let's translate a little bit what Joanna is trying to teach us. That can become worse in time, in intimacy. And what happens is that there is an unconscious process of identification going on among people that are in this relationship, or between, let's say, two people, right? And even in this pathological state, because she's proposing that we examine a relationship that it's unhealthy, okay? Even in this sense, there is a vibration among people or between the two people that connect people with each other. In psychological terms, there is a process of identification, okay? And that is structures, give a structure of this relationship and determines the type of relationship. That, of course, if it's unhealthy, then it would be, for instance, aggressive, cruel, dependent in a pathological way. But this mechanism, okay, of identification is essential for the preservation of physical, actually identification in the sense of learning with each other, okay? This mechanism is essential for the preservation of physical, emotional, and mental health, as it structures behavior in an uplifting way when carried out in balance, or causes disorders of various kinds if arising from reactions generated by antipathy or primitive animosity that still exists as a guide to conduct. It depends on the way that we vibrate, that we connect to each other. Then she says something wonderful. When you observe someone or something, the process is one of reciprocity, because what or who you see, in turn, also observes the observer. Remember that experience with the electron, that it changes his own behavior, acting as a particle if there is someone observing the electron, or as a wave when nobody's observing. So I think this is fantastic. So, of course, here Joanna is talking in psychological terms. The focus is psychological. So in everything, there is a unitary response of identification, working in the form of energetic, vibratory relationships. She wants us to understand psychologically, but also spiritually. Do you see, people? She's connecting psychology and spirituality. How? Because she's talking about human relationships. And when we talk in psychiatry or psychology, about process of identification, we are talking psychological terms. But when we are talking of a form of energetic vibratory relationships, then we are talking about the spiritual dimension. So look how beautiful she's joining, she's putting everything together. I haven't seen this kind of knowledge except in Joannei de Angelis. It's said in this way, okay? I haven't seen any the authors joining psychology and spirituality and physics and spiritual knowledge put exactly in this way. So let's go again. In everything, there is a unitary response of identification, working in the form of energetic, vibratory relationships. Without such an occurrence, the meaning of human life would disappear, and the survival of animals, plants, as well as the permanence of minerals would result in the form of the so-called chaos of the beginning. Don't we have to pay attention to that, right? Without this careful, and Jung talks about the expansion of consciousness also, but then he was talking about the self, capital S, okay, in the need for us to pay attention to this knowledge that comes from the transpersonal dimension of the psyche. That is the spiritual dimension. Jung doesn't say like this, but we know nowadays through Joanna and, you know, that it's the transpersonal dimension of the psyche is a spiritual dimension that we connect to through this ourself, our spirit, right? So the soul is connecting the spirit, our spirit, to, we could say, and so the spiritual dimension to the ego that it's here in the material world, okay? So we need desperately to heal our souls, to make our souls stronger, to develop our consciousness, to make our souls healthier and stronger in a sense of morally speaking, and with the spiritual values developed enough so that we can better connect when we are here. That's the kingdom within us. When we are here, we can be, you know, more capable of connecting, bringing the spiritual dimensions, the higher spiritual dimensions, to here, to this world of ours where we learn duality, and we are in this beautiful school, but very tough, very difficult, where we suffer, we still suffer, but that we are transitioning to the regenerate world, of course, which means that the spirit is going to be more active, and with its consciousness expand, not only more expanded, but also more active in this world with less duality, okay? Still learning, still evolving, but now, let's say, more mature spiritually speaking. So Joanna says that in everything there is a unitary response of identification working in the form of energetic vibratory relationships, okay? Without such an occurrence, the meaning of human life, meaning for Jung is also, search for meaning is the development of spirituality, okay, in all of us. And for research purposes in psychiatry is the same thing. We say that spirituality is the search for meaning, the search for our purpose here in this life. So Joanna says that without this psychology where we observe and are observed by, by other people, so without these relationships between, among all of us, and that includes the vibratory and energetic fields that will interconnect all of us. So without this, the meaning of human life would disappear. So what would we be doing here? Okay, and how we would connect to all of these different dimensions that are here present in this, because everything is interconnected, the material world and the spiritual realms. So the meaning of human life would disappear, and the survival of animals, plants, as well as the permanence of minerals would result in the form of the so-called chaos of the beginning. So she says the relationship can also be identified in the range of the noblest instincts and emotions as the vital element. It's a French word, the force, enthusiasm, and, for the process of intellect moral growth to which everything is destined by the single causality. Look at the different words that she is describing this unity. I think it's so beautiful. Of course, when I read this, do you know what this means? Who knows about the fractals? I'm not sure. Our friend Kai Carvalhais, sometimes she is with us. I think she is in Europe in some conference, but I was invited to be with Professor Lionel Corbett in the presentation of Kai Carvalhais, that I hope she will be with us pretty soon at some point in our meetings. In her, in her doctoral thesis, okay, where she talks about fractals and reincarnation. I'm not going to give you spoilers because I want people to come back and to think about that and to listen to that. It's wonderful, her thesis. But I brought to you, how this, I don't know if you can see here, how the forms repeat themselves. When I was reading Joanna, I kept thinking, yes, in science we say that shapes repeat themselves in nature. And Jung says, as I told you, the psyche is part of nature, okay? So of course, if everything is interconnected, our different bodies, the psychic, our psychic body, mental, emotional, material, will repeat forms, okay, as nature repeat forms. It's not for you to get upset. I haven't heard about that. It's just to give some, and I don't want to give spoilers because we want Kai here to talk to us about the fractals and reincarnation. But I just wanted to bring you a little bit. Look at this beautiful image. So here to my right, I think it's your right, is a forest seen from above. Look at how the forms repeat themselves. To my left is a tree and some rays in a storm, okay, by the side. And here's a vegetable and plants that keep repeating, the forms repeat themselves. I think it's so beautiful. And who thought about that? I don't know if you have heard this mathematician. It's called Benoit Mandelbrot. I hope that his name is correct. And of course, of course, I went to look in a simple way to talk to you. And when I saw some things in the Wikipedia in English, this is not fun. Then I found in BBC Brazil, of course, since in Brazil we have all this this culture of spirituality and spiritism and religious syncretism. BBC Brazil made a wonderful description of his work, and he said in his biography we can read that Mandelbrot did not attend his first 2 years of school and was largely self-taught or taught by family members. He was a very small child in the Second World War. Okay, he had a gift for seeing the hidden patterns of nature. So of course I wanted to bring also, because then it's a very wonderful example of paying attention. Remember, people, ego self-axis, of the ego having the capacity to just listen to the intuitions of the self, of the higher self, right? Jung's self, capital S. So he was able to see rules where everyone else sees anarchy. He was able to see form and structure where everyone else is just a shapeless mass. That's because I put they had in their text, BBC Brazil had these clouds, this beautiful image of clouds. you can look in the Google and can read them. Well, it's in Portuguese. I just translated for you, but the ones that know Portuguese is a very good report about it. So he was able to see form and structure where everyone else is just a shapeless mess. And most of all, he was able to see that a strange new kind of mathematics underpin all of nature. I was very glad about that because I'm awful in mathematics. I know people who are good. I, pay a lot of respect to you, but I'm awful. If I see the numbers, that's something interesting. If I read the principle behind it, then I understand everything. There's something in my brain, I don't know, that's something different. Maybe I can, when I go back to the spiritual realms, I can understand that. Okay, but so I think Mandelbrot is a very nice example to see nature, to observe, remember, observe and being observed with the eyes of our higher self, expanding our consciousness, okay? So back to Joanna, she says that relationships of any nature offer a field for reflection when in the area of consciousness by providing parameters that provide ideal behaviors through analysis of each experience and the results they bring. Remember, we are in a self-discovery process here, right? Trying to help each other with that. So it's very important, self-analysis, paying attention to ourselves, our intuitions, our dreams, right? Our experiences, so that we can, Jung called the transcendent function of the psyche. We can try to, when the consciousness try to get closer to the unconscious, try to understand without so much fear, without so much protection, understand the intuitions, the message that come and the images, connect with the symbols that are coming all the time from our deep unconscious. Because as we know, what it's trying inside of us, that higher consciousness is always trying to help the ego to fulfill not the ego's desire, people, but the ego's, the psyche, actually, personal myth. Remember when we talked about that? So all of us has a personal myth, a myth that we have to pay respect to, and that we are supposed to develop and to fulfill in this experience. Okay? So Joanna says that human beings need the emotional warmth of others, through whose achievement they expand their field of superior emotionality, developing feelings that sleep and are warmed by the mutual relationship, which leads to maturity and love. At the same time, this desire to maintain contact with the most varied expressions of life spreads, and they find joy and renewal of objectives by expanding the capacity to love and experience new achievements. I told you that my psychological type is feeling function, extroverted feeling function. So when I read Joanna, I'm blessed. My feeling function is, yes, I understand everything, but we need the thinking function here also. So we need to exchange and intuition and the senses. So we need to exchange knowledge, okay? So the flow of human life manifests itself through the relationships of creatures with each other, contributing to a better and more efficient social coexistence. We need each other to coexist in this flow of human life. In the most primary expressions of behavior, the gregarious instinct brings beings together in order to preserve them through the union of energy that they exchange, even without realizing it. Then comes a story. I think maybe we have talked about that in some previous meetings. I found a very cute picture of porcupines in the internet. So Joanna talks about an old fable that tells that in a now remote ice age, porcupines felt threatened with destruction by the cold that reigned everywhere. By instinct, they came together and managed to survive due to the heat they radiated. However, because they were very close to each other, they began to hurt each other, causing unexpected reactions, which caused some of them to move away. As a consequence of the decision, all those who were far away began to die due to lack of heat. The survivors, realizing what was happening, approached each other again, now, however, knowing the precautions they should take in order not to hurt each other. Thanks to this happy conclusion, they survived the terrible calamity. Of course, there's been only like 2 years of the pandemic, and people who are going to be watching this in the future believe that every time that we have to face a calamity together, the psychological reaction many times first is to look for each other, to search each other, to search for help, for the warmth that we can provide to one another. But then with what happens, of course, we are traumatized. There are a lot of unconscious stuff that we have to deal with. So we hurt each other. Sometimes we are going to envy one another because one is better than the other. Sometimes we are jealous of people. Sometimes we can't understand what's going on with people that we love. And then we go apart, you know? And what happens in that, you remember everything that Joanna is asking us to pay attention. We need each other. Everything is interconnected. We are deeply, deeply interconnected to each other. So what happens when we go apart, as the shadow, collective shadows and the shadow aspects of the, some dimensions, this material, even some, in a very low dimensions of spirituality, everything that is shadow wants us to get apart from each other. Pay very much attention to that, people, because we are beings of light. And when the light shines within us and we shine with each other, then we are doing what Jesus, our most evolved being that we know, that has been here to lead us back to unity, capital U, and lots of other wonderful beings of light, Buddha, and also, in different religions, beautiful beings that have come to teach us the way back to unity. What happens is that if we forget that we are sparkles of light from this unity, from this source, this that creates everything. So what happens is that it's easy that we get lost in the shadow, in other people's shadows. Remember, we are identifying. So if we diminish our light, if we identify with the shadow, we have to work with our shadows. We have to integrate our shadows, to learn with our shadows, but not to identify with our shadows. Remember vibration, because in the way when I identify with what is shadow, then I vibrate low, and then I am in low dimensions of existence. Okay, and then my light diminishes within myself, and I get pathological, I get neurotic, I get away from other people's light. I get envy, you know, the hurts of the soul, you know, and then I have to do to go back to the path to healing my soul, okay, to do the work that my soul is supposed to do, to be this intermediate between the light of the spiritual dimensions, the higher spiritual dimensions, and this school of learning here that we are, okay? So I think it's wonderful that Joanna brings this example. And she, you see, she talks about old fable. And then some people are going to ask me, oh, Anahy, but wasn't Schopenhauer's parable where we saw for the first time this story about the porcupines? Because of course, Arthur Schopenhauer, that it's in the 19th century, I think, he made a parable about that it's called, I think it could be the porcupine dilemma or hedgehog's dilemma or something like that. Okay, it's, you can find in the internet by the both names. And we know that Arthur Schopenhauer was a German philosopher from the 19th century. Jung talks a lot about Schopenhauer in his collective works. And but the focus, as I told you, he was from the 19th century, okay? And he was an introverted. There's a little story of how he came with this this intuition, but he was perceiving that reality that he was observing in people through his introverted attitude. We have seen that in psychological types. Please, people that are listening to this and haven't seen, watched the meeting about psychological types, go to Bournemouth Spiritist Center, right, Fabricio? And look at that. You have our meetings are published there, right? People can go and look.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Fabricio.
Yep.
Yeah? I thought you wanted to. Okay.
Mhm.
So just go to the channel in the YouTube, Bournemouth Spiritist Center, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the thing is that Schopenhauer, he focused in the distance that we have to have from each other. He didn't know anything about quantum physics, the field, the interconnected of everything. So he said that the porcupines were caught between two evils, being frozen to death or hurt by their quills, until they had discovered the proper distance from which they could best tolerate one another. And he talks about our unpleasant and repulsive qualities and the mean distance which enables us to endure being together as being, so this distance as being politeness and as having good manners, okay? And he talked about in British, you say, in Great Britain, about, he gave some example about, you know, having good manners, keeping your distance. I think there's an expression, keep your distance, right, in English. So, and just to remind you people that Freud quoted Schopenhauer's parable in a footnote to his 1921 work called Group Psychology and the Analysis of the Ego. So you see the difference. Even a great philosopher as Arthur Schopenhauer, that, you know, just had this intuition to talk about an old story, okay? And of course, he was talking about his point of view, his psychological type, the way he was perceiving this and observing people and people's behavior. And Joanna talks about the same, and Freud, of course, then quoted Schopenhauer's parable. And of course, but talking about the ego and the complexes, because our shadows, our unpleasant and repulsive qualities, we are talking about the shadow, and we stay apart from each other, right? But what Joanna is talking about, the same, it's an archetypal story, you know, the same example, that the survivors, when they learned that they could hurt each other, realizing what was happening, approached each other again. Now, however, knowing the precautions they should take in order not to hurt each other. She's not talking that we should keep our distance from each other, but that we should learn, self-discover people. We should learn with ourselves, with our self-analysis, the distance that I have to keep from, you know, my fellow human beings, the psychological distance, the respect, okay? To be able to exchange good vibrations, to exchange light, and not shadow, and not neurotic patterns, okay? And then she says, thanks to this happy conclusion, they survived the terrible calamity. Let's please survive, struggle to survive the calamities, whatever calamity that appear in our path towards evolution, because this is irreversible. We are going in the direction of the regenerated world, okay? There's no, you know, even if people talk about war, about this and that, this is the shadow, and the shadow is being illuminated by meetings as such as this one, by people talking about, you know, in different ways, different podcasts, YouTube channels about light, about expansion of consciousness, about a field that interconnect all of us, okay? So Joanna says, in general, people fear more serious relationships because they do not want to be hurt, believing that they will not get the understanding or support they need, preferring an attitude of distance, which does not prevent them from experiencing any other type of embarrassment. Such an attitude, undeniably conflictive, results in torment for those who behave this way because they feel expelled from the context, despite this attitude being of their own choosing. There is no psychological growth without facing problems, without the friction of emotions, particularly in the area of sorry, the English here, affectivity, which is a new field for the being when it trains stronger and more valuable expressions of love. Okay, this is very, very important. There's no psychological growth without facing problems, okay? The challenge of the relationship is a gigantic invitation to love in order to reach existential plenitude. It is impossible to postpone the proposal for the development of the superior self, the higher self, in which the divine seed of life resides, awaiting the propitiatory factors for its development, taking into account the fate to which it is destined. This is wonderful. I think we should, you know, stick in the fridge, no, because it's wonderful. It is impossible to postpone the proposal for development of the higher self, our spirit, okay? Because the divine seed of life resides in it, and it's awaiting the propitiatory factors for its development, taking into account the fate to which it is destined, okay? Let's do the job, people. So we are beings of light. We want to have an image like this, right? And remember, I've shown you this slide. Jung says the sole purpose of human existence for him is to turn on a light in the darkness of being. Okay, I would say, because Jung said this in the 20th century, we are in the 21st century, trying to, expand to cosmic consciousness. So I would say at this point is not to turn on a light. I would say to turn on many lights. Let's be bold. Everybody knows by now that I'm a tracker. So let's go boldly where no one has gone before, quoting Star Trek, okay? And let's turn on lots of lights. At least have not gone before here, that we know, right? In this world of ours. So we are going to leave some time for questions, but just a quick, I send you in the WhatsApp group people that are listening to this this meeting and the YouTube channel. Please get in contact with Fabricio, right? If they don't have the text, send kindly to us by the U.S. Spiritist Federation, our friends in the U.S., the translation to English. So Joannei de Angelis in Self-Discover and Inner Search. It's just some sentences for us to finish this meeting here. So Joannei talks about search for unity. And she says the human being is a spiritual being who is an incessant awakening. Human's fate is linked to the angelic state, due to human's energetic nature. And through one's trial of evolution, one drives one's animal inheritance where one goes. One retains instincts, one retains instincts and makes efforts to acquire consciousness in order to free oneself and unfold all of one's latent potential that proceeds from one's transcendent origin. It's another way to say more or less the same thing that we were saying previously. Immersed in and attracted by the divine tropism, she calls diotropism, the individual leaves the darkness of ignorance and disturbance that she calls the unconscious in order to reach blessed space of knowledge and wisdom, consciousness, the conscious, but not the ego consciousness, okay? Expanded conscious. Andres, do you want to wait to finish, or do you want to ask now? What do you prefer? We are almost in the end.
I wait.
Okay, you are the first then. So to be born in a new body is to unfold one's possibilities to obtain self-consciousness, liberating oneself from rough condensations of ignorance. That effort occurs through the hurtful injunctions of illnesses, which are the depurative process that free one from the lower stages in which one moves about. When analyzing the law of cause and effect, imperative progress happens by means of repairing deceits, mistakes, and crimes. It also occurs by rectifying them and perfecting the superior tendencies that start to blossom. This process, however, is similar to a transcendental birth that generates afflictions in the beginning in order to authorize and favor life later on. Everything works on behalf of unity. Remember, we are talking about unity, marching towards equilibrium and harmony and obeying the imperative polarity that is manifested in the terrestrial world. In the Chinese philosophy, the representation of perfection is symbolized in the circle, half yang, half yin, conferring the magnificent manifestation of harmonic assembly. Oops, sorry. So just for people, just to register the image of yin yang, okay? I will just go a little further. As a part of the universe, human beings contain the miniature of the cosmos in their cellular organization. As such, they demonstrate that the individual shall represent harmony that will invigorate when all human beings balance themselves in the ideals of progress, advancing towards the grand reality. Another name. How many names of the head office Joanna is using? And I had just seen an YouTube channel talking about the intelligence, the sentience of our cells in the body, okay? People can look to Rupert Sheldrake, the British scholar, wonderful, that talks about morphic resonance and morphic fields. It's not so difficult as it sounds, but I strongly advise you, look for Rupert Sheldrake, please. So naturally, a shock occurs between what one has been and what one really is, a divine sparkle transiently rooted in the flesh. In order to leave unconsciousness and introspection to reach lucidity, this process results in momentary emotional imbalance, and it elapses from nostalgia or what has been lived and anxiety by what one intends and should achieve. As a consequence, an interior conflict is often established. On one hand, there is in the past, with its atavist inheritances, to which one was accustomed to. So when Joanna talks about atavist inheritance, she's talking about our spiritual inheritance, okay? Things that we have lived in other reincarnations. To which one was accustomed to, and the appeals of an unknown happiness freed of forms and limits. And I'm just going on, then you can go on. I'm just leaving here. You can stop when you are going again, or you have the text to read. But the main thing here, she's talking about illnesses and how we get ill, okay? When we get in this emotional disturbances that affect our cells. You know, when she talks about cells, she's because we know in the medical field that the membrane of the cells have intelligence, okay? They know, they are sentient, they know what to leave, what they can leave to enter the cell, or they can give leave to enter the cell or to go out of the cell. And commanding all this, what Joanna is going to say, all this functioning of the body in the cellular level is our psyche, is our mind, okay? So she goes so deep as to say that the discernment of life's purposes brings inner harmony. That harmony provides the individual's natural integration to the cosmic assembly, then contributing for the preservation of the universal unity. That's why we are all interconnected, and we need to let our lights, inner lights, shine, because we are expanding the light of and going back to this universal unity. In that sense, each organ in the somatic body, she's connecting cosmic consciousness to our body consciousness. Look at how beautiful. In that sense, each organ in the somatic body is a unity in the interdependence with the other ones. In its turn, each cell is a being per se, with specific function, working its share on behalf of the whole, in which it finds itself. We know that people that work in the medical field, the order of what is obtained through mitosis, now she's talking about mitosis, the duplication of the cell, depends on its equilibrium and automatism. Mitosis is an extremely relevant function that is maintained by the individual's mind. I haven't heard this in my medical university, in my medical training. Therefore, it is sensitive to the individual's moral changes and reacts according to the mental and behavioral attitude of the incarnate spirit. Wow, that's a lot of to cover. Let's hear again and let's study them. We are going quickly because of time, okay? But go again, please, listen again and read again to the slides. This is, I had to bring to you a mitosis process. It's before the cell is divided, okay? But it's a duplication of all the DNA, the material, to form an identical cell. So the ascensional march is challenging and can only be carried out when the spirit is aware of one's progress that cannot be delayed. The complex panorama is delineated since the awakening of the individual's responsibility in life. All of one's latent potential is developed as our godly inherent inside all of us. As much as we seek brotherly identification with one another, law of love, we should also try to be caring and loving to our own bodies. She's talking about the relationship with our own bodies. And in deep respect and aware of evolution, we should experience the challenge of advancing towards unity, God, in which for the time being we remain in dystonia. Therefore, everyone must make an effort to cooperate with equilibrium in favor of a harmonic assembly by experiencing the fullness of life in oneself. In the inevitable process of the individual's evolution, opens one's perception to one's own reality and the consequent understanding of the purposes of corporeal existence. Immediately, the need of self-knowledge becomes a challenge that should be conquered under tenacious effort. Self-knowledge provides the identification of available intellectual and moral resources, as well as damaged behaviors. The individual who gets to know of one's own inner limits and rich possibilities, one conquers horizons of discernment. Thus, the individual's options extend through the liberation of pernicious atavisms. When the individual transforms the deleterious energies into energies loaded with creative aspirations, that is conscious and responsible biological reproduction, for instance, art, culture, and noble actions, one becomes limpid, leaving animal impulses for angelic conquests. So two circumstances induce the individual to illuminate advances. And she talks here about the dissatisfaction in which the individual considers other forms and fraternal service, community interests, as one wishes the gradual abandonment of old habits, okay? And the second is the instrument that is reincarnation, in which spiritual impulses of growth stimulate the experience of moral principles and non-transferable personal transformation. You can read this better later on. In that medial stage of love, impulses of elevation strengthen and love expands without demand. And then afterwards, in the superior phase of love, love is designated by inner peace that does not either need reward or becomes numb under the expressions of ingratitude. Tender, this love becomes an anonymous agent of others. happiness because it is enriched of emotions that generate surpassing harmony. Those emotions do not need physical contact, presence, or interpersonal relationship. Then we are talking a more elevated form of love. And she says, love is the most vigorous creative power that we know of in the world. Its vigor is responsible for the magnificent works of humanity. And to end, she says that the individual psychological maturation, love directs all ideas and maintains oneself in all experiences, in the individual psychological maturation, sorry. It also blossoms as a splendorous lotus on dirt and still waters of a swamp on which it floats in triumph. Okay, people, I will stop sharing. Lots of hands. And we have, sorry, but it was a lot of issues to cover. And I think we have time for some questions. We have like 10 minutes, right, Fabrizio?
Yeah.
And I think we have Andres and Silvia. I think that's the order. I don't know in the chat, I haven't seen. So Andres, with you. Go ahead.
Oh, I just have one question. Hello, Anahy. There was just one question. You said
Hi.
something about the shadow, and I didn't really understood it. I didn't understand what you meant. The shadow. We should see the shadow, but not experiencing it or being it. What did you say?
Identify
No,
it.
integrating it, being attentive to the shadow. And integrating the shadow because it strengthens us, this process of integration, but not submitting, let's say, to the shadow, you know, not if we don't, as we studied previously, if we don't acknowledge the shadow, it's going to get worse and bigger, right? Because the ego, like the mechanism of defense, the meeting that we learn about the mechanism of defense, the ego is going to repress, is going to deny, and is going to maintain in the unconscious. So we need to make the shadow conscious, right? We need to, because this is it's integrating the shadow. And every time we do that, for instance, let's a quick example, Andres and everybody else. For instance, I'm envious of someone, okay, that I think has understand a very practical example, understand Joannei de Angelis better than I do, okay? Let's say some of you raise your hand and said, oh, Anahy, when you said that and that, this and that, I understood that Joanna meant this and that, okay? And I said, wow, I had never thought about that. So I get envious of that person, for instance, because I wanted to understand, I wished I had seen what this person saw or understood when she read Joanna's sentence, for instance, when she studied that part of what Joanna was saying. But then my ego said, no, I'm a spiritist, for instance. I'm a nice person. I love Joanna. I want to be a being of light. I cannot be envious, even if it's not in my consciousness, okay? But it's trying, this kind of thinking is trying to get to my consciousness. So the ego automatically is going to use the defense mechanism, yes, right? And it's going to deny, to repress, and live in the personal unconscious. But remember, people, our shadows, our personal shadow as a complex is connected to the collective shadow. So every time that my shadow gets bigger, let's say, the process is that I'm helping the collective shadow to get bigger also. So every time that I dissociate, that I don't do my work of self-analysis, self-discovery, I am, let's say, just talking about the shadow, as Andrew said, I am well, making the shadow bigger inside of myself, my unconscious, that is connected to your unconscious in the deep levels of the psyche, in the collective unconscious. So why are we in this mess, still with wars and conflicts and saying that person is there's no worth in that person, or this and that? Because we still have a shadow work to do. We have to integrate and the shadow. Because when I say, okay, I am envious because I wanted to understand Joanna as that person. And then I'm just looking, well, what do I know about what did I realize about what the person said? Oh, she said that, or he said that, or that. Oh, this is interest. Then I'm going to talk to this person. And I know what's what's your field of, let's say, of education. You are a philosopher, you are engineering, you are a psychologist. I will listen to the person, and then suddenly I'm not envious anymore because I'm learning with the person. Okay. And then suddenly we will all not be students of Joannei de Ângelis or other light teachers. We are going to be teachers ourselves in the regenerate world. Let's say we are going to be also teachers of light, teaching each other, students and teachers at the same time. But then, Andres, my shadow is diminished, and I do the work, because since everything is interconnected, my responsibility is not to overload the collective shadow. That's what I meant, and when I integrate the shadow, wow, then my light is a little stronger, because then I realize a value in in the person that I was envying, right? And I recognize a quality of soul. And then I say, well, I'm learning with my brother or sister. So in this moment, we are exchanging high vibrations, humility, like Jesus taught, and then I'm exchanging high vibrations. And what happens is that the light is in me suddenly. And then I don't have to envy anymore, because we are together in the light. I don't know, it was just an example that I thought, because we are here in Joannei de Ângelis family, right, Fabrício? And to be a family means to learn together, to experience, even if it's suffering for a while. Because everything that we talk together is that we have to endure suffering, let's say, to to shape our characters and to grow in light, to grow in consciousness. Is that okay?
Yes. And it's interesting because on the Congress, we were discussing about the shadows, and someone brought something that is interesting, because Kardec said himself that our passion is a driving force. And what has happened throughout many centuries of religion is trying to repress our passion. Because, like, for instance, the Catholics, oh, you cannot be passionate about this because this is a sin. So therefore, we had been repressing our passion. And then Kardec said, no, we have to embrace it, because our passion is our driving force. So we have to embrace it. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, right?
Yes, exactly. I couldn't be there physically, but I was there in my heart. And then we were connected. That's a very nice example. We are all connected in the collective. So yes, of course, because the passion, like Freud, the eros, the word eros, the myth, because it's psyche and eros, or eros. And he used as only sexual force or drive. And eros, actually, the sublimation is this passion that you said that gives life, the energy that gives life, the energy of this passion that gives life. So of course we have to have this, to give life to our lights. Exactly, Fabrício. And Kardec was talking about that. And when religion, that can be a path, different religions, but sometimes it's not the right path, because if exactly this, if diminishes your passion, your elan, your arrows, the driving force of creation within yourself, then you are going to submit to other people's will, then you are going to, you know, be not free. But also Kardec talked about, you know, freeing the spirit, freeing the mind with the evolution of consciousness. And that's everything that Joanna is talking about, putting together with psychology. Thanks so much, Fabrizio, because it's a knowledge that connects us all. I think Sylvia wanted to talk. Sorry. It's are you striving, Andres? Are you suffering, or can we?
No, I'm not. I wasn't really finished, but it's okay. No problem.
Okay,
Sylvia.
so let's just give Sylvia. Go ahead, Sylvia.
I was just saying something because you're talking about how difficult this kind of thing that Joanna is saying. But if you read Andre Luiz, he talks about fields, quantum fields, radiant. So the language is very much within our Spiritist doctrine, and it's amazing how Joanna can bring this together. Because, as you said, you know, you don't read that deep in anything. You know, even the greatest writers, they don't go to that level because she's bringing it already, you know. And for us to understand, it's such a blessing that we have this and we can be together and discuss, because this is a way of transformation. And I think something you're saying actually to Andreas reminded me something, a quote from Jung, that he says that humanity will not be transformed completely, but to be individuals within that will be transformed, and the force of the unconscious will bring others with them. And it's interesting as well, because you read this in Sufism, you know, in Galeb and Khalil Gibran, he says something as well: when someone is hurt, I am hurt because I'm part of humanity. And when someone is well, I'm well. And it's so interesting that Joanna actually makes it so clear, all these connections, because we are a being of light that we don't know. You know, our light is hidden and needs to be brought out. And I find this fascinating. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Exactly. I think you summarize everything, and remind me of Emmanuel, Chico Xavier mentor, that says, I cannot quote exactly his words, but he said that evolution is inevitable. And, you know, that because revelation is always coming to light. And when I read in Jung's, revelation is always going on in the unconscious. I had already read Emmanuel, and from what I know, Jung never read Emmanuel, of course, because it was
There is a question. There is a question in the Spirit's book that Kardec actually asks: is it everyone is going to evolve? And the answer from the Spirit is your destiny. That's all I say. Beautiful. It's your destiny. I always forget the number of the question, but it's in the Spirit's book. And that is, you know, it's your destiny. Whether you want it or not, whether you lag behind, it will go, because there is no other way but progression, evolve, and enlightenment. And I think if you get all these philosophies, you know, Sufism and everything is connected, and we are connecting. As we go up the mountain, something happened once with us that, you know, this really, I went to France to Rocamadour with the Black Virgin. You know, I don't know if you know about the Black Virgins, 400 of them everywhere. And we had to go all in different cars, and we're so separated. And we are going up. By the time we start going up the stairs to go to this cathedral, it's in the rock, we're all joined together. All of our group came together as one. And as we got into the church, everybody left. and we could be there, just a group, and we said a prayer for peace for the world. It was the most incredible experience. And I think these connections happens all the time in life. Even being in this group now is a connection of cosmic, you know, we are reaching the cosmic Christ. So I find it great.
So
Thank you.
everybody's smiling, everybody that I can see. It's uplifting. And I thank you so much and Fabrizio and everybody for being here today, and having this opportunity for us to, you know, to be together in this very high vibrations, high end, high. I missed you all because I think a month is a lot of time, right? But anyways, we are interconnected, right? By all this loving energy. And let's not forget about that, because our egos tend, of course, sometimes to connect, you know, with low vibrations, because, of course, we are still in a dual world and a lot of things going on. But as Andres asked, and and remind all of us about the shadow, we know the path, and meetings like that and studies like that with Joannei de Angelis, different groups, different people in the United States, in Europe, but everybody joining together to bring more light to all of us. So thank you so much. I think we are in time, right, Fabrizio?
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful time to be together with you.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you next month, people.